Hello and welcome to 6 Degrees of Wiki, a podcast by Something Cheeky, where two sisters find the 6 degrees of separation between Wikipedia articles that don't seem to have anything in common. I'm Rosanna.
And I'm Nikki. Today we'll fall into a Wikipedia spiral where Rosanna has just 6 rounds to figure out how the first article could possibly be connected to the last, while learning all sorts of peculiar facts along the way. Let's get started. This month we've gone from Mae West to Deception. Round 1. Today we're spiraling from deception to the Great Fire of London. Deception is the act of propagating a belief that is not true or not the whole truth. That fire was in 1666. It pretty much gutted the city. Rosanna, do you see any connections between deception and the Great Fire of London?
No, I do not. Except for, maybe some people died in the fire because somebody lied to them about having to get out. I feel like I remember that from some story. But I also don't know if that was that fire, or a different fire, or a fake fire from a fictional novel. I don't know. So to reiterate, no.
Let's talk more about deception. It can involve dissimulation, propaganda, sleight of hand, distraction, camouflage, concealment, also self-deception. Today we're going to talk about detecting deception. So here's the thing. There is no definitive way to detect deception across all people because everybody has a different tell. There aren't any completely reliable indicators verbally. There's some pretty reliable indicators when grouped. Like you look for kind of a cluster of different things. Some clues you're looking for in nonverbal communication. Things like they speak more quickly, have lots of repeated words, poor logical structure. Odds are they're probably lying. Some other things to look for. There's often a fear response that causes heightened arousal in liars. This can manifest in frequent blinking, pupil dilation, and a higher-pitched voice. Liars that feel guilty, which is not all of them.
Right.
Sometimes they make attempts at putting physical distance between themselves and the person they're lying to. They can also speak in more indirect ways and have a hard time maintaining eye contact with their conversational partner. Round 2. Okay, Rosanna.
Yes?
Are you ready to guess the next degree between deception and the Great Fire of London?
No. Okay, I'm gonna pull out an interesting word that has to do with things.
Stuff and things.
Exactly. I'm gonna go with propaganda.
Propaganda.
Yeah.
Your guess of propaganda is incorrect.
Okay.
The next degree is sleight of hand.
Oh, that's so much better.
Sleight of hand refers to the fine motor skills that are used by performing artists. They use them to entertain and manipulate, often associated with close-up magic, card flourishing, and stealing. People often confuse it for being an actual branch of magic, but it's really a separate genre of entertainment.
Really?
Yeah, there are a lot of artists that practice sleight of hand that have no interest in magic.
Huh.
There are lots of sleight of hand pioneers. Dan and Dave, Ricky J., David Copperfield, Jan Frisk, Norbert Ferré, Dave Vernon, and Tony Sledini. I have heard of one of these people and no more.
No David Blaine, huh?
No, I wasn't in there.
Weird.
So sleight of hand's often used in close-up magic, and that's where the audience is physically close to the magician. And that eliminates theories of fake audience members, the use of gimmicks. It also lets the artists use everyday items for props, like cards, coins, rubber bands, sometimes even salt shakers and phones. And if it's done well, it looks like a natural, innocent gesture, or a change in position or body posture. And that's actually when the sleight of hand is taking place. It's not common during stage magic performances, since most of these stunts are performed with objects that are visible to a much larger audience. There's also cardistry, which is a form of sleight of hand. That's just about impressing without illusions or misdirection.
Wait.
They just do really cool things with cards.
Oh. So they just, like, manipulate cards.
Mm-hmm.
Huh, interesting.
Like if someone does it, you know, those crazy shuffles people can do?
Yeah, just tricks.
That's cardistry.
Like, with, like, dexterity. Yeah, huh, interesting.
Also, like card throwing. We can throw cards so fast that they can slice through fruit.
Yeah, which is terrifying.
Yeah.
Round 3.
All right, Rosanna, that went pretty quickly. Are you ready to guess the next degree between Sleight of Hand and Great Fire of London?
Yes.
What do you think it is?
I'm going back and forth between cards and David Copperfield. I think it's probably one of the names that you mentioned, but as you said, I agree. The only one I recognized was David Copperfield. So I'm just...
Yeah.
And also, if it is David Copperfield, I don't know how that leads to the Great Fire of London, but I'm still going to guess it because that's all I've got.
Your guess of David Copperfield is... correct.
Oh my gosh! It's because it was the only name you recognized too, right?
It was. David Copperfield was born David Seth Cotkin. He's known professionally as David Copperfield. He got the name from the book David Copperfield by Charles Dickens. He was born in 1956. He's an American magician. He is described by Forbes as the most commercially successful magician in history.
Yeah, that sounds right.
I knew he was famous and good at magic, but I had no idea how successful he was. He's won 11 Guinness World Records.
What?
He's sold 33 million tickets to his shows.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I knew he was like the most famous one, but I didn't know even the most famous one was that successful.
He's made over $4 billion.
Oh my gosh.
It's more than any solo entertainer in history.
Seriously?
So, here's some history. He started practicing magic at 10, and he called himself Divino the Boy Magician in his neighborhood. But he was good. When he was just 12, he became the youngest person admitted by the Society of American Magicians. By the time he was 16, he was teaching a course in magic at New York University.
At 16?
He was good.
Okay, so, but has anybody asked him, are you actually a wizard? Because it's not really fair if you are.
2 interesting facts. He likes to sometimes do magic with celebrities. In 2001, he was at a White House benefit for UNICEF, and he took Jennifer Lopez, the singer and actress, and sawed her into 6 pieces in an illusion.
Oh. How did I not hear about that?
Well, it was a while ago. In 2009, at the Country Music Awards, the CMAs, he made Taylor Swift appear inside an apparently empty, translucent-sided elevator as it was lowered from the ceiling, and then he sawed her in half.
Okay, I feel like I might be spending some time on YouTube when we're finished recording, because I don't remember either one of those things, but I need to see it.
Round 4.
Nikki, the spiral is hard.
I know. You've gotten one right. You got the last one right.
Yeah, but that one wasn't hard.
Are you ready to guess the next one?
I am.
Can you guess what's between David Copperfield and the Great Fire of London?
Well, I think that my guess is going to be based on the Great Fire of London being a long time ago, and you mentioned that David Copperfield got his name from the Charles Dickens novel, so I'm going to go with Charles Dickens.
Your guess of Charles Dickens is... Incorrect.
Okay.
I totally did that on purpose to throw you off the scent. The next degree is Guinness World Records.
Oh, that was on my list! Dang it. I mean, if you had let me have 5 guesses, I would have gotten it.
I didn't even write down the stuff about his name. I just remembered it, and I was like, oh, I should say more about that because Dickens and London. And
oh, tricky.
Yep.
Nikki, you got me.
Guinness World Records. They were created in 1955, and until 2000 they were called the Guinness Book of World Records. Now, technically, it's just Guinness World Records. It's a reference book that's published annually, has world records from both human achievements and extremes from the natural world. Like biggest this and longest running that and all that.
Mm-hmm.
It was the brainchild of Sir Hugh Beaver, which is a great name.
Yeah.
And his book was co-founded by twins Norris and Ross McWhirter in Fleet Street, London in August 1954. The book itself holds a world record as the best-selling copyrighted book of all time. I liked the story of how the book came about. In 1951, Sir Hugh Beaver was working at Guinness Breweries, of Guinness beer.
It's the same Guinness?
Yeah, I know, I was surprised.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He was on a shooting party.
As you do in that time.
I know, those... Oh, man. Those rich dudes.
Yeah.
So he missed a shot at a golden plover and got into this argument about what the fastest game bird in Europe was, the golden plover or the red grouse.
Oh.
It's the plover. So he realized that evening that it was impossible to confirm in any reference book which one the fastest was. And he figured there were lots of other questions debated by people all over the world, but no book that actually could settle arguments about these records.
And no Google.
And no Google, exactly.
Yeah.
So he thought that a book with answers to all these questions would be successful. And an employee from Guinness, Christopher Chataway, recommended some of his friends, the McWhirter twins. They had been running a fact-finding agency in London. And so he got them together with Sir Beaver. So they put together their first book and gave away 1,000 copies, and then it started selling really well. So they include records from competitions like Olympic weightlifting, longest egg toss, longest time spent playing certain video games, number of hot dogs they can be consumed, but they've now stopped including eating and alcohol consumption because of, that can be bad for people, and there's fear of litigation.
It's very bad for people.
They also don't accept certain records for ethical reasons, like those related to killing or harming animals. And my favorite fact about the Guinness Book of World Records is that they say on their website, "We do not accept any claims for beauty as it is not objectively measurable."
Ah. People magazine does not make the same claim.
Round 5.
Are you ready to guess the next degree between Guinness World Records and Great Fire of London?
I am.
Okay.
So, you actually said London.
I did.
In this one. So now I'm trying to decide, should I go with London? Because obviously London, right? Or did you say London throw me off like we talked about Charles Dickens and it was actually the Guinness World Records? So the other option was the plover bird. And now that I've said those both out loud, I feel less sure of both of them. So, I mean, it can't be London already. That doesn't make any sense. But would you have picked plover? Also, how could plover get to London? It would fly, right? No.
It is the fastest game bird in Europe.
Well,
so.
Right. So, I feel like my guess is plover, the fastest game bird in Europe.
Your guess of plover is incorrect.
Ah, really?
The next degree is Fleet Street.
No, Nikki, no. You have to have said the words in it.
I did. It was in Fleet Street, London. It was literally the 2 words before London.
Okay. We don't need to talk about how close it was to my guess.
Fleet Street is a major street in the City of London. And the City of London isn't like London like you think of. It's a walled section.
You don't know what I think of when I hear the City of London?
You think of Sherlock is what you think of.
Alright, apparently you do know what I think of when I hear the City of London.
But the City of London is separate from London. It's its own...
Okay.
It even has its own kind of governmental system. It's crazy.
Seriously?
Yeah, it has walls around it. It's all self-contained. They have their own mayor, I think. It's weird.
Huh. Okay. I don't know anything about London.
So Fleet Street is a major street there in the City of London. It runs west to east from Temple Bar at the boundary with the city of Westminster. And it goes to Ludgate Circus at the site of the London Wall and the River Fleet. And that's where the street got its name, from the River Fleet. It was a really important route since Roman times. It's got a whole bunch of monuments and statues all along the street. There's a dragon at Temple Bar. There are memorials to figures from the British press, like Samuel Pepys and Lord Northcliffe. It's mentioned in works by Charles Dickens. So we kind of maybe could have gotten there, but not really. It's also where the fictional murderous barber Sweeney Todd lived.
Ah.
My favorite fact about Fleet Street is that in the late Middle Ages, there was a conduit that was the main water supply for the area. When Anne Boleyn was crowned queen after she married Henry VIII in 1533, they ran wine instead of water through it.
Wow. That is equally disgusting and wasteful and expensive.
And lavish.
Yeah. I mean, would you just, like, take your cup outside and, like, dip it in the waterway and drink from it?
In the Middle Ages, why not?
Well, I guess that's true. I mean, you're probably going to die of something anyway. Might as well be wine.
Probably.
Round 6.
This is your last guess of the month, Rosanna.
Ooh, yeah. Better make it a good one, huh?
Okay, Rosanna, what is the last degree between Fleet Street and the Great Fire of London?
Okay. When you said Fleet Street, immediately following that, you said London.
Mm-hmm.
Like you did before, but I'm going to go ahead and pull that up again. So, instead of going with Plover this time, because you didn't happen to mention it again, I'm going to go back to my other guess of London.
Your guess of London is incorrect.
What? Nikki, I think that you should check your notes. Just to be sure, because it only makes sense that it's London. Wait, hold on. Let me guess another one.
Okay.
I didn't write anything else down. I was pretty sure it was London.
The next degree is Samuel Pepys.
What? I don't even know who that is, Nikki.
I also did not. Until I read about him. His name looked familiar. It's spelled P-E-P-Y-S.
Like,
but pronounced Pepys.
Pepys.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was.
Okay.
He lived from 1633 to 1703. He was the administrator of the Navy of England and a member of Parliament. What he's most famous for is a diary he kept for 10 years that included many important events. He kept it from 1660 till 1669, and it included first-hand accounts of the coronation of King Charles II, the restoration of the British monarchy to the throne, the Anglo-Dutch War, the Great Plague, and the Great Fire of London.
Wow, that is pretty important stuff he kept track of.
Yeah, he was upper middle class and did pretty well, so he was around for some pretty big stuff.
Wow.
The diary, well, multiple volumes, more than 1 million words long.
Wow.
Yeah. He wasn't a great guy. He cheated on his wife a lot, and he sexually harassed his female servants. His diaries were published after his death. It seemed like he didn't ever expect anyone to read it, necessarily.
Yikes.
They left out a lot of it because he described just everyday life for him, including all his affairs, and so they cut a lot of that out. The full version of his diaries weren't published until 1970.
Wow.
And a man named John Smith was engaged to transcribe the diaries into plain English because they were written in shorthand and a little bit of code.
Oh, gosh.
He worked on this for 3 years. When he was almost done, he found the key. He found the key to the shorthand system that Pepys used a few shelves above the diaries themselves in the library.
Oh, no.
After 3 years.
Oh, my gosh.
Of figuring it out.
Okay, you know what? If that was me, though, I would never have told anyone, and I would have burned the key. I would have been like, nope, I figured it out all by myself.
So frustrating. So that's Samuel Pepys. Not a ton about him. Really, the most interesting thing about him was that he kept a diary for a long time.
And that he was kind of a terrible person.
He was. Also, when he got married, he was 22 and his wife was 14.
Ew.
Yeah. Not so awesome.
Ugh, gross.
Let's talk about the Great Fire of London.
Yes, a much cheerier topic.
It was nuts. It really was. This fire happened... It started on Sunday in September of 1666. It burned until Thursday. It gutted the medieval city of London that was inside the city wall, inside of London itself. It consumed 13,200 houses, 87 parish churches, St. Paul's Cathedral, and most of the city authority buildings.
Wow.
They think it destroyed homes of 70,000 of the 80,000 inhabitants of the city.
Oh my gosh, that's a ton.
First pass at the death toll doesn't seem bad. There were only 6 verified deaths recorded. Here's the problem. They didn't actually record the deaths of poor and middle-class people. And the heat of the fire probably cremated most of the people, not even leaving any remains. So it's more likely that thousands of people died.
Yeah.
It started at a bakery owned by Thomas Fariner on Pudding Lane shortly after midnight.
Thanks a lot, Thomas.
Mm-hmm. There were a lot of things that contributed to this fire being so bad. One thing, we've got a great scapegoat in Lord Mayor of London, Sir Thomas Bloodworth. He was supposedly yes man and not really qualified for his job. He got called to decide on demolishing buildings to use as fire breaks to stop the fire. Because the fire was just jumping from house to house.
Right.
And he could actually see the flames getting close to the paper warehouses. And he said because they couldn't find the owners of those buildings, that they couldn't tear them down.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Then he left the city.
Well, sure. Why stick around for that?
He just left. The king had to step in to order fire breaks on Monday.
Oh my gosh.
But by that time, the fire had destroyed so many houses, demolition workers couldn't even get through the streets. Wow. Also, it was very windy, so swirling winds were carrying sparks to other roofs, even when there was a break. They also thought that St. Paul's Cathedral could stop it because it had a really big plaza around it. But it was undergoing restoration, and it was covered with wooden scaffolding.
Oh, no.
Which caught on fire.
Of course.
And that caught the timber roof on fire, and that caught everything in the crypt on fire because the printers who had left Fleet Street because of the fire were storing all their material, the printers and the booksellers.
Oh my gosh.
So the crypt was stuffed full of paper.
Wow.
And that all caught on fire. They also had thatch roofs all over the city, even though they were legal. Also, there were foundries, smithies, and glaziers grouped together, also illegal in the city, but people just tolerated it. And there was serious overcrowding. So they had 6 or 7 story timbered tenements that had jetties, which is a projecting upper floor. And those were so common that they basically just covered alleys. And so the fire could go right from one side of the street to the other, because they were so close.
Wow.
Those were also illegal, but that was also ignored. They used the River Thames for firefighting sometimes, but there were poor districts along the riverfront, and they kept just lots of cellars full of combustibles. Like black powder, and pitch, and tar.
Sure.
It was pretty bad.
That's horrible.
There were only 8 gates out of the city of London walls. At first, people didn't even try to leave the city. They just kept moving away from the fire from place to place.
Mm-hmm.
And so the streets just got more and more crowded with people. So by the time they did try to leave, it was just panic and a mess by the gates.
Yeah, it's really hard to imagine what you'd do in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, would you make the right decision or would you be stuck?
Yeah, Samuel Pepys in his diary said that it was so strange because people were just wandering around and freaking out and not trying to put out the fire.
Yeah. They just didn't know what to do. They were in shock and probably felt really helpless and were expecting somebody to show up and tell them what to do.
Yeah.
Ugh.
They had piped water into the city, but the fire cut off access to the river, also set the water wheels on fire, so the water stopped getting pumped through the pipes.
Oh, no.
There are 2 things that stopped the fire. 1, the wind finally died down. And 2, the soldiers at the Tower of London got tired of waiting for the firefighters who were across the city, so they just started making their own fire breaks and tearing down buildings.
Oh.
That stopped it from spreading. Interesting fact, also very sad fact. There was a confession by a guy named Robert Hubert, who claimed that he was an agent of the Pope, because this was during the time of war, and so people thought that it was foreigners attacking the city or something. So he was basically mentally disabled, and he said that he had started the fire in Westminster, later changed his story to say he'd started it at a bakery in Pudding Lane. He was convicted, and some people thought he didn't quite have the fitness to plead guilty, but he was still hanged. After his death, they found out that he had been on a ship in the North Sea, hadn't even gotten to London until 2 days after the fire started.
Oh my gosh.
So, pretty terrible.
That is.
But I still just want to blame the mayor of the city of London, because he could have stopped all this.
Seems like there were several people along the way that made some bad calls.
Yeah. So that is a spiral. We went from Deception to Sleight of Hand, to David Copperfield, to Guinness World Records, to Fleet Street, to Samuel Pepys, to the Great Fire of London. Rosanna, how did you feel about this spiral? Any surprises or favorite facts?
Well, Nikki, you tricked me, and that led me down an erroneous path, so I got a whole bunch wrong. But I thought it was really interesting. I knew some of the stuff about the Great Fire of London because I remember listening to a podcast last year that covered it, actually.
Oh, okay.
And some of it I had heard, and then you filled in some spots, and so that's pretty interesting. You know, you always, when you hear about something like that, you think, what would I do in that situation? And you don't know if you would do any better. And then you just think about all of the things like, you know, running water that we have that are so nice that they didn't have. And yeah, it's definitely something that you'll be thinking about. Also, the whole, I'm going to have to go YouTube spiral David Copperfield. So that's fun. Yeah. You gave me homework.
It's time for Cheek of the Week. Our cheek this week is a new review.
Yay, review!
This review is from Diana from Heencast, which is Happily Ever Aftermath. Bingeable fun learning, 5 stars. Rosanna and Nikki will send you through an entertaining maze of facts. Play along and guess the next degree while you enjoy their natural rapport. Before you know it, you've flown through an episode and need to jump to the next. Add this to your regular listening schedule.
Aww.
Thank you, Diana.
Thank you, Diana. That's so nice.
That's our episode. Tune in next time for another 6 Degrees of Wiki. You can keep up with us on Twitter at SomeCheek, Facebook.com/SomeCheek, and Instagram at Something Cheeky Podcast. If you have questions, feedback, or an idea for our next Wiki Spiral, send an email to contact@somethingcheekypodcast.com.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider making a donation to help us cover our production costs. Just click the donate button on our website. Leaving a review for us on iTunes also really helps. Can't wait for our next show? Check out an episode of Something Cheeky Movies. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.